Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. Don't forget to check out our sponsors, Trap and Roll Soap Company and Rolls Gear, and you can find all of our old episodes at bjjshow.com. I'm Rob, and Randy and I talked a bit about his past week in SOCP, which is known as Special Operations Combative Program, and how it can help with everyday jiu-jitsu all the way up to military applications, and kind of what he learned from it and what his thoughts were on it. So we hope you guys enjoy this episode, and if you guys want to support the show, don't forget to go to our website, bjjshow.com. You can buy a shirt, you can buy a patch. I think stickers are still up there, and shoot us a message, tell us how you're doing, what you want to see on the show, any guests you might be interested in, and we hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
So we're up. I think we're good.
Yeah, we're good. It says it's going, but every time, even though like without fail it works, knock on wood, like it's still, like one of those, I guess, kind of worrying moments where is it going to work or not? Is today going to be the one day where we're like, yeah, it's fine, it's going to work, and we're doing whatever. But hey, it's working now. We're having a good time. You actually had a lot of training going on this week, so
yeah,
what'd you do, man?
So I went to SOCP out in Fayetteville for some training. I think most of the listeners at this point know kind of what I do for a living and all of that. And so SOCP, for those that don't know, is a Special Operations Combatives Program. And so Greg Thompson is kind of a well-known resource within the law enforcement and military community, and also jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. If I remember correctly, one of Royce Gracie's first North Carolina black belts, and so he's pretty legit. Super nice guy too, which I thought was cool. Tends to be a trend with the real legit ones. They end up being pretty humble and pretty easy to talk to, and that's definitely Greg. So that was cool. A little bit on that though, it's funny that I haven't met Greg up until this point, because I've trained with so many of his previous students throughout my jiu-jitsu career. So I started with Team Rock Eden. Brent Pierce taught that as a brown belt, and him and Greg were the two that started Team Rock. Moved to Raleigh. I started training with Brandon Garner, who also trained with Greg Thompson. And then I went to TFTC Cary, where Brian Mingy taught. And of course, Brian trained a lot with and taught a lot with Greg. So it's just funny how that goes. And even if you look at who gave him my blue belt, Spencer Canup gave him my blue belt. I know he had some ties in there as well with those guys. So it's pretty cool to finally get to meet one of the OGs and train with them and stuff. With SOCP, what I love about it, and for those that are in the military or in the law enforcement community, I highly recommend you get the training, is how realistic the training is and what its focal point is. It's more principle-based learning as opposed to technique, which is something that I'm a big fan of. And the training it kind of constantly asks and answers the question of, is this technique or is this approach realistic to what your mission is? And it's adaptable to different types of missions and objectives, which is pretty cool. Pretty intense training, long days, fun, but long, and lots of scenarios and micro fight drills and stuff like that.
Nice. Well, I mean, I know that like any of the combatives programs that they have out there is pretty good because, it's all, like you said, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu based. It's meant to go from, just holding down somebody to like kind of not apprehend them, I guess, in a way. Like for you, for law enforcement, it'd be apprehension, but for us, it's more like, sir, can you please stop? We have to was it search you real quick, all the way up to like full blown, like this is a life and death scenario. And you need to keep yourself in control and hold that person. But I don't know if when you were in the Air Force, did they do combatives in the Air Force?
No, not really. I mean, it was touched on very, very briefly. It's not like it is now. I think now Air Force actually has kind of like their own version of MACP, the Modern Army Combatives. I don't know what they call it in the Air Force, but they have their own combatives program that's based on the similar idea. when I went in the Air Force in 2004, they weren't really doing that, which I was disappointed with. You go in the military and you think you're going to learn some stuff and do that. The Air Force wasn't really on par with that, but now they are. No, I agree. And I mean, I think it's obviously the mission is a little bit different for special operations. Some of those guys don't have the same rules of engagement as police officers. We have to be more on the apprehension side, um, more on the control side. Even in a tactical realm, if I were to make entry into a room and encounter resistance, I can't just shoot the resistance unless they're threatening me in a way that is construed as deadly force. So, I mean, if you just kind of start push pulling with me, I can't just shoot you unless you're trying to fight from a weapon system where I can articulate that. So, we still have to grab onto somebody, go hands on, and take them into custody, and that's where the combatives comes into play. So,
Well, that's good that they taught that because I remember the level 2 for me. I kind of laughed because they part of it was handcuffing,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, when am I going to use this? Like this is I'm not military police. I'm not in any sense of that. But it turns out yeah we do kind of do some detainee ops and stuff like that. But handcuffing somebody is wild if you've never done it. Like it's like it's kind of a weird for an outsider it's like
mm-hmm.
this weird thing where like it in a way it does make sense but in a different way like now I'm having to like make sure their hands match and stuff like that so you're not like twisting them up and stuff like that but
Right.
it was definitely a very very interesting experience to actually do like some handcuff drills and stuff like that like detaining somebody with a chicken wing and slapping a cuff on them and then helping them bring their other arm up to get handcuffed.
And imagine it like this with people listening that haven't ever done it before. When you go to jiu-jitsu next time, just in one of your roles or a couple of your roles, if you want to get crazy with it, try to get your partner's hands behind their back, both of them at the same time while you're rolling. It's extremely difficult to isolate somebody's hands behind their back because no human being wants to be put there. It's a compromised position. That's why we do it in law enforcement. It limits your mobility and your options to attack us. And so just try to get there. It's tough, which is exactly why with law enforcement, I don't teach them submission holds. That's not the objective in law enforcement. It's positional control and dominance until you establish compliance. Then you handcuff them when they're in a compliant state, not while they're fighting. And SOCP was right on line with that. And I can't speak for the mission of special ops. I'm sure there's guys out there that do need to detain somebody or bring somebody into custody, so to speak. But what I like about SOCP's evolution is now it's including tactical law enforcement as well, which is kind of where I come into play in that. So bringing this knowledge back to our tactical unit, hopefully to some other teams in the area as well, because it's really, really, really good knowledge, good information. So, and then not to mention, I got to tell you, man, probably the most rewarding experience of all of it was rubbing elbows with some of the military community, man. Those guys, especially the soft community, what they do, what they sacrifice for this nation, sometimes just goes completely unspoken. So being able to interact with those guys and train with those guys was a really cool experience. So
Yeah, it's definitely a an eye-opening experience because like I was regular army, not no special operations for me, but I mean like finally getting to like roll with some of them, especially through jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. You do get that opportunity to kind of see that world and what they do and you know kind of their mindset of it. And seriously some of the coolest guys and gals I've ever met, especially like even with jiu-jitsu. Like I've never met a group of white belts, and I say that in a very nice way because like they still can like just rip my arm off no problem.
oh, cool. Yeah.
Super humble, super just chill, and just want to learn. I thought that was a really cool aspect of that group of people.
Well, I think that's the thing about it too. I keep saying that phrase, but it's applying what we're talking about. Is you look at jiu-jitsu and I think people get it skewed sometimes and they look at your belt color and they're like, oh, he must just be a badass all around, or maybe they feel that way about themselves. Oh, I got a brown belt, so that means I can kick everybody's ass. And it's like, no, no. I mean, there were not many high-ranking jiu-jitsu practitioners in this class. I was probably one of the highest ranked in the room, but that by no means that I could take everybody in the room. And you look at a real encounter, a real fight, and that can take several different forms. You might be looking at a bar fight scenario. You might be looking at like a, road rage incident, or you might be looking at what these guys do where they're, overseas and they're in a confined space and it's about getting to your weapon system. It's not about a submission. And when you look at that, these guys are experts at doing whatever they need to do to access their secondary or tertiary weapon system. So, you think you're winning the fight because you got them tied up. Next thing you know, you're getting a dagger jammed into your artery, and then they're pushing off and you're looking down at this knife and you're getting shot and you're like, oh, my jiu-jitsu didn't help here.
Yeah.
So you have to take it into context with what you're doing. And being the man on the mats all the time at your local school does not always mean that you're some kind of badass. And I think that there's a nice, healthy reality check there that occurs when you're in a class like this. So,
Yeah. I love, like, in a sick way, I love getting beaten up in a jiu-jitsu class because it does let me know that, like, hey, you're not, like, cool, man, you got a brown belt, but you still can get beat up very easily. And especially, like, when a blue belt or a purple belt or heck, even some of the white belts, like college wrestlers or people like that, give you just a beating. Like,
mm-hmm.
it's just like, hey, this is why we don't pick fights. This is why,
Yeah.
like any of that stuff, because you have no idea. You really don't. And just it's really cool to me. Like, and I think maybe that's the ego filter. I think that's something that we've touched on before, and it isn't 100% filter, but I feel like stuff like that gives you that filter where it's like, hey, like you can get beat up by this white belt who's like a phenomenal wrestler,
Yeah.
and don't be sad about it. Like, don't be like upset about it.
No, and I think what I'm going to start doing sometimes when I teach on my Friday classes, I'm going to start bringing training knives and randomly interjecting them into roles just to draw awareness, if nothing else. Not to try to turn it into some kind of self-defense class, right? But at least to draw awareness, because what jiu-jitsu does give you is a lot of awareness and body feel and control. You know where their hands are, and you should. If you're rolling, you should always know where your opponent's hands are
Yeah.
for a multitude of reasons, right? So that they're not feeding that collar without you being aware of it, or whatever. But also in a self-defense perspective, if you're not watching the hands, then you're putting yourself in a bad way. And when we did the scenarios at the end, kind of the culmination at the end, what it did is, I mean, even though I in my mind, I kind of wanted to go there and like get into some exchanges with these guys and grapple and see what they had to offer. They're introducing training weapons into these things. So I don't want to get exposed. I don't want to get stabbed. I don't want to get shot, And so you go to these scenarios and you start realizing that, and I talked to one of the guys in the class after, I was like, man, I'm surprised. I really wanted to tie up and kind of do my thing. And I've got confidence in my ability to do that, but I did not go there unless I absolutely had to. And it was very few and far between. I mean, I think, the most effective technique I used the entire time in scenarios was just an old school push kick to create distance, push kick the guy over one of those combat cubes because he was trying to get on me while I had my weapon system out,
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting. And the guy, he was a member of the soft community, so I'm not going to go any further than that. But he was kind of talking to me. He's like, "Well, that's because you have this high level of training. You understand where that goes, and when you have weapons, you don't want to go there. That's a good thing." And so I think it's really important for people that train in jiu-jitsu for self-defense to expose themselves to some of these different elements, because it is definitely an eye-opening experience, and it completely changed my perspective on combatives, on jiu-jitsu, on teaching other people. I mean, the class was really, really good, man. Top notch.
Dope, man. I hope one day I can somehow sneak into one or even get into it somehow. But I mean, that was something like, because I've read the book, the one that Greg Thompson I think helped out with. The it was published by the same guys who put all the, what was it, the Gracie books together
Oh
back in
yeah.
the day. Like,
Yeah.
it was a Kip Peligro was the one who like helped publish a lot of those and stuff like
Yeah, I think
that.
he was. Yeah, and I mean, so I've got the old school one in my training office. Actually, I got a new one in this class, and a couple other manuals I can show you. Pretty cool. Um, and you get some cool swag in the class too, which is always a plus.
Nice.
Um, it was a little bit rough driving an hour and 15 minutes every day, and then it's just rep after rep, which is a great thing. And I got to say that we talked a little bit when I went through GST level 2 about how disappointed I was with the lack of time spent on actually repping out the techniques
Yeah.
and the individualization and individualized attention, I should say. This class was the complete opposite of that. You had so much time to rep out the techniques. The instructors were coming around, really getting in there, engaging with you, fixing things. I don't want to use the term micro adjustment because that has a different connotation in the community now, but that's basically what it is. And very, very legit. And so, you get beat up, you get sore every day. I was exhausted. I managed to get into jiu-jitsu 3 times within that week, which was all I could manage. And I'm one day behind on my lifting regimen. But I think that's pretty decent for the amount of work we are putting in out there. So
What was I gonna say? Like those seminars or those classes usually run 6 to 8 hours a day, and
yeah,
then you realize you're rolling for like maybe 4 or 5 of them.
yeah, it was a healthy 7 hour class. And that's only because we had an hour lunch. It would have been 8 hours otherwise. And it was constant work. There were no like 10-minute water breaks. In law enforcement, you always get every hour you get 10-minute water break, and everybody goes around, does what they want to do, and ends up cutting out almost an hour of your training. There was none of that. It was constant work. And there were little microfight drills you would do in between technique teaching. And there were some instructional periods too, like lecture format stuff you would do. But absolutely top notch teaching in SOCP. So they have a new thing called TACP, which is on his website. I'm not trying to throw a plug. I'm just trying to keep it real with what he's offering because he's got some good stuff. TACP, not to be confused with Air Force
Yeah.
Tactical Air Command Control Parties, but TACP is a class he developed for law enforcement. So it's almost like the law enforcement version of SOCP, but for road guys, not tactical. Um, which I want to go and check that out. So for law enforcement listening, go look for that class. I think they offer it at Wake Tech on occasion. So
Oh, nice.
I'll be looking for the next session there. I'll probably try to go hit that up. I mean, it's just now me and my coworker have to consolidate all the classes we've gone to over the past few months and figure out what we're gonna adapt or consolidate into our training. So
Well, that's cool that you're taking what you learned, all the good stuff, and then put it into that training that's going to help out in the future. So I wish I could come down and see it, man, because that's a pretty exciting thing to have. Like, kind of, I guess maybe a approach to what I think we've been talking about for a long time now is making sure law enforcement has that type of grappling knowledge
mhm.
to control situations and, like you said, hopefully save lives that way.
Oh yeah, and they talked a lot about defending against the draw, whether you're talking about a edged weapon or a firearm. Sometimes you won't even know what kind of weapon they're trying to draw until you either successfully draws it or you get them in custody and do the search and find out. But having been in that scenario more than once in my career where I fought somebody while they were attempting to draw a weapon, um, that's a difficult situation to be in. And knowing what to do is really important. And that can save lives. That is a huge piece, a prime example of where superior grappling control can save lives in the law enforcement community, both on the police side and on the suspect side. And believe it or not, that second side is still important, right?
Hmm.
And so sometimes people are just in a different mindset. They're not bad people, but they're just caught in a really bad dilemma and they're making a really stupid decision under stress. And, yeah, if they draw a gun out and point it in a cop's direction, the cop has to do what he has to do. But there's an in between sometimes that you can work with. And I think that a lot of the techniques they went over on dealing with that weapon draw attempt, uh, very, very pertinent and realistic. And I lucked out in one of my earlier experiences in law enforcement that I actually used one of the techniques he taught and it wasn't from him way before I learned from him. It's just kind of what works is what works.
Yeah,
So kind of a double wrist rod with underhook type position. And, um, that's 2-on-1 is important when you're talking about dealing with a weapons draw. So,
absolutely.
um, and then tomorrow in our agency, I'm not going to drop my agency's name because I don't feel like having to do a statement. Um, we've got Lead Tactics Incorporated coming out, which those that aren't familiar with that's Henzo's group.
Oh yeah, you were talking about them a little while ago.
Yeah. So Henzo's got his own little piece dealing with the law enforcement. Now, Henzo, from my understanding, has been teaching law enforcement for years, right? But as far as a structured program, this is kind of his thing that he's doing. And so a couple of his guys are coming down to do a presentation locally that my agency is hosting. Um, so I'm curious to see what they have to offer, and it's a completely different format how they push it out there. So it'll be interesting to see what they got to do. I'll be sure to bring some details back on that.
That'd be cool to hear about as well. Like, because Henzo still has Henzo deals with a lot of up in the Northeast. New York, New York City area has a ton of people. I think even Birdman, well, because Birdman's one of his students. I think he got his black belt under Henzo. But it's he's got a lot of influence. He's got a lot of knowledge, and the guy, guy did a lot of MMA and jiu-jitsu, like Gracie challenges and stuff. So I think he has a pretty good understanding of when people get a little too rowdy, how to handle them.
Absolutely. Him and his protege Matt Serra, which I'm a huge fan of Matt Serra. We've seen videos of that, the superior control and all that. So I know those guys are both very pro law enforcement, which is great. And I think it's time people in society realize that you know, being pro law enforcement doesn't always mean that everything law enforcement does is okay. It can be expecting more out of the community and providing the resources for us to get better. I think that's the epitome of pro law enforcement. So I always appreciate guys like with the Gracie Survival Tactics, SOCP, TACP, Lead Tactics Incorporated, whoever comes into the fray to try to make um, law enforcement more effective at their job. That they're the epitome of pro law enforcement, in my opinion. So
Nice. So the question is, though, for me, how sore are you after a week's worth of rolling 7 hours a day almost?
my neck is jacked, dude. Me and my buddy that went to the class, he's got a little bit worse than me because he got put into a neck crank at jiu-jitsu the one day we went after.
Ooh.
Um, but it's just because you're constantly, working to a position where you've got control, you got the shoulder isolator, the head pinned or whatever, and you just rep that out on each other and you're just beating the crap out of each other while you're doing it. Um, my neck and my shoulders are badly in need of some chiropractic care right now. And just overall, my body's sore, man. So freaking sore. I took yesterday off completely. I didn't do anything yesterday. Just try to give myself a chance to recuperate. Um, but man, it's so worth it. And I'm kind of bummed. So they do a more information on that class, the structure of it. The first week is just level one,
Yeah.
right? Just SOC P basic. He covers some of the MACP stuff, obviously, to kind of bridge the gap. And then the second week, which is coming up, is the instructor course. And my agency didn't want to foot the bill on the instructor course. So I couldn't go for the 2 week stretch. I'm kind of bummed. I wanted to stay for that, but
Yeah, yeah. That's
uh,
understandable. I mean, like that is kind of how the Modern Army Combatives program ran as well. Is like you get one, level one is like, hey, you know the basics. You probably should practice this more than once a quarter. By the way, just throwing that out there. And then
mhm.
level two, you get the instructor certification and stuff like that. But it's like I think the way it's set up is really good. It's kind of like a force multiplier of sorts, where now
Mhm.
you have somebody if they keep doing the techniques. I can't even talk. Keep doing the techniques, keep practicing them. Even go to a gym outside of just the class that
Mhm.
they can now do that on like either police time, military time, whatever it is. So like Thursdays for the army was sergeant's time training. So NCOs we would gather up our platoon or squad or whatever, and we teach something. And then if it was you're certified level two, you got to do combatives. So I mean that was figure out that was kind of what I always tried to do,
Oh yeah, of course.
but it's also just a good way to just get people to understand basic techniques and stuff like that. So, it sucks you didn't get to go to the level two, but I think eventually you getting there will be very beneficial, I feel.
Yeah, and I was talking with my commander on my team that I'm on, and he's more prone to try to make that work budgetary wise to get me back there for the instructor course. The cool thing was this: there were a lot of people in this class that had already gone through the basic and were coming to the instructor course. There were only a handful of us that weren't staying, so he kind of got more in detail on the whys and kind of, gave us what he called gravy on top of the potatoes. So we got kind of
Nice.
extra, and all they're doing really this week is coming up there to the teach backs and the test. So I still got a really good experience to it. And not going to the instructor course doesn't mean you can't teach it. It means you can't certify anybody in level one.
Okay.
So, I kind of get the department not wanting to pay the bill on that because it is a lot more. It's like $1,000 more. Um, but I kind of want that instructor cert. So,
It's something cool to hang up in your office or wherever you want, man. It's cool to have.
yeah. So, really, really cool experience. I don't really know what to do next. I mean, we'll see where I go next with this. I think it's going to be the consolidation piece and kind of honing what I'm doing. I saw where the state level had an opening for a defensive tactics coordinator, but unfortunately the pay sucks.
No,
So
well.
think I'm gonna stay where I'm at and keep doing what I'm doing for a little bit longer.
Yeah, not a bad life, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. So Black Rifle Coffee, you need to lower your damn net worth requirements.
Yeah, we were chatting about that before we started the episode with Randy wants to open up a Black Rifle coffee shop, which I think they like you said they're offering franchises, but
Yeah,
holy heck, I think the price is a little steep, my man.
500,000 net worth, man. I'm just a broke ass dumb cop. I don't have 500K net worth.
I gotta do some shady things to be 500k worth that much. Maybe
Yeah,
not
I mean,
shady. I just got to come up with the next big thing.
well, with this face, I can't sell my body, so that's out.
Should do is we need to do like a pyramid scheme where instead of like leggings or whatever, we should just do like martial arts
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
I mean,
just
I think I have a nice like big toe on my right foot. You think there's a market for modeling your right big toe?
if you have ugly feet, I think you
Yeah.
actually can make some money off of that.
Oh
Because like
shit.
for me, my feet are hideous, dude. Like any jokes that I've done martial arts for if we at least half my life now, a
Yeah.
little over maybe, right? Barefoot all the time, and so like to the point where like Chelsea took me out to get a pedicure, and I posted up on Facebook, I got a pedicure, and somebody responded, "Would you have to pay double for your feet?" And I'm like, well,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's known, man. I got Hobbit feet. They look like shit, and I wear
Yeah.
flip flops all the time too, so
You just gotta
everybody's
put them.
subjected to it.
Yeah, you gotta put them out there.
Let them air out or something. I don't know.
That's fucking hilarious. What is that? I keep looking over your. I don't know how this camera is backwards or forwards or what. Look, to me, it's over your left shoulder behind you.
Which side?
That's how you just at first. Yeah.
This one?
No other one.
This one?
Yeah.
You talking about the
Look.
lucky cat?
No. So look. Speaking of Lucky Cat, I don't know if you can see it. I'm wearing the Nine Lives Jiu Jitsu
Oh
shirt.
shit! Nice. There you go.
It's got the little cat on. But no, behind you, there's well, it's not really behind you. It's right off to your left shoulder. Right? No, come forward again. On this table, there's a big black box. Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is all right. So the people on screen can't see it, but yeah, it's full of energy powder for gamers. I stream on the side, and they partner me, so I'm not gonna plug them because they're not paying me to do this shit on Big Jiu Jitsu show. So get
Yeah.
no recognition. You gotta
Just
sponsor us for that.
I was curious. I just didn't know what it was. It looked interesting. I kept looking at it, so I
Yeah.
was just
Once it's over, I'll show you all the things that's in it. But it's like because you get a man's got to eat. It's beer money on the side, streaming video games and stuff. It's not bad. But
yeah.
yeah. So like I've got the whole desk set up, and I think because I was like I need to do more than just use my laptop for doing the Big Jiu-Jitsu show. I got to make it feel professional and stuff. So we're slowly but surely getting there with the more professional look.
Well, I'm not going to drop the name yet because it's not done yet. But there is a supplement company that I go through, and they were looking for like public safety professionals and stuff like that for their sponsorship thing that they're doing, and it
Ooh,
pays pretty good if you get picked up. And I got a text that they want to talk with me on Wednesday. Said that my
nice.
profile jumped out at them, so we'll see.
Hell yeah.
Might bring them in as an additional sponsor, though. We'll see.
Ooh, do fancy things with fancy stuff. But I mean, that's all your stuff, my man. I want you to
Oh man, come on! I'll
give
share
it.
the love. You know that.
Hell yeah, that's
But
awesome.
you know,
So
I mean, that's if it goes through. If it does, you guys will hear about it. If you don't hear anything, that means I lost.
nice. So before we let's see, is anybody out there got any questions for us? I know people are out there. I know you're watching. If we don't get
We
any
got like
questions, how do what?
says we got like is it what's that? I never figured out this I on them. I'm watching the thing. It says two. Does that mean there's only two people in here, or does that mean
Yeah, but it rotates through all the time. So
it does? It does.
like I don't for this I don't like it doesn't bother me. It's like only two are watching us live. People got shit to do on a Sunday. It's
Oh
4ish
yeah.
p.m. So
Oh, football's on, man.
yeah, dude. No, like, dude, forget the Panthers game. Forget the Panthers game. We need to watch the Big Jiu-Jitsu show. So
Yeah.
if we don't get any questions here in the next like 30 seconds or so, we'll just call it a day. And
Yeah, my Bills aren't playing today, so I'm actually getting shit done on a Sunday.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
because was it Josh Allen wasn't playing, so I couldn't play him in my
Yeah.
fantasy league, so I'm sad.
I got like 4 players on my fantasy team that are Bills, so my team is struggling right now. All my backups are in there sucking, and Kansas City's doing terrible. So
Yeah, I thought I was gonna do well with this year, but I haven't won a single fantasy football game.
dang, I'm 5-2 right now,
Nice, good for you, man.
but I think it's about to change.
Well, sorry to hear that. So I guess we'll call it a day. You got anything else you want to say to our friends and listeners for this episode?
No, you guys need to interact with us more. Hit us up with some questions and stuff. Maybe some guests you want to see. I say it all the time, but we're not getting the feedback. I want the feedback. I want to interact with the people that are listening. That's what we're here for. So,
Yeah.
uh, but I think, and then what? It'll be. Will we get another show in before Halloween or what? What days?
We can make it work if you want
If
to.
not, if not, just have a good Halloween. Let us know some of your costumes. We want to see the costumes.
Yeah, especially if they're martial arts related or whatever. So,
Yeah.
um, have fun Halloween. Be safe. I'm Rob,
I'm Randy.
and we'll see you guys next time.